today with Jill Hart, the founder of Christian Work at Home Ministry. And I know that you all are going to be very encouraged to hear from her because this woman has learned how to juggle in amazing ways that impress me, especially as someone who works at home. And she has created an amazing ministry that has a lot of tools and encouragement and resources that we'll share with you at the end. But she's going to talk to us here today about the joys and the challenges of working at home when you have a chronic illness. And so she's going to share with us how she works at home and deals also with an invisible illness. So thank you for being here with us today, Jill.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this, Lisa. I so adore what you do and the hope that you provide, and I hope that I can be a little splash of hope in your pool too.
So tell us exactly what it is that you do from home.
Okay, well, I started Christian Home Ministries in 2000, so we're almost 12 years old. We started out as Christian Work at Home Moms, but found that there was so much of a broader audience that really the mom logo didn't fit us anymore. We outgrown it, I guess. So as of August of this year, we're Christian Work at Home Ministries, and we provide lots of free resources, telecommuting jobs that we post every day. We have 30 people that blog for us on different topics, both work from home and faith related, and just really try to be a resource and a source of information and encouragement and motivation and even some accountability for people who do want to work at home or who already do and just need that. Sometimes we all just need that kick in the pants or that you can do it attitude. And so we try to provide that as well.
Jill, what exactly is your invisible illness? Would you like to share that with us?
Well, I have the pleasure of dealing with Graves' disease. I say that lightheartedly, but it has been a struggle. There were some pretty dark days in the beginning, and it affected my heart. I had a real rapid heartbeat when they finally figured out what was going on, among a million other things, weight gain, fatigue, just things that I don't even want to remember. I'm sure many of you can guess that. I laugh and say jokingly that my brain really dissolved, both from giving brain cells, all the good brain cells to my children, and then for my thyroid disease as well. So Graves' disease is a form of hyperthyroidism. So my thyroid was very high, which normally causes rapid weight loss, but 8% of the population, it causes rapid weight gain. So I'm very thankful to the Lord that I got the weight gain portion of that. I remember sitting in the dark one day, shortly after I got the diagnosis, and the doctor had explained all of this to me, and just praying and kind of yelling, I think, at God and just saying, Lord, if I have to be sick, could I not be thin? And I was really, really heavy at the time, obviously the heaviest that I had ever been. And just some really, really dark days, a lot of fatigue. My kids were still small. My daughter had just started first grade, I believe, and my son was still at home with me. And it was pretty wild at first. And, there's a lot of, when you have an invisible illness, obviously no one sees what's going on. No one can understand how you feel. And so it can be hard to sympathize with that. And I know my husband struggled with it, my mom has gently admitted to me that she kind of thought some of it I was making up. And as I have gotten better and, obviously as the medication took effect and things have changed, she has seen me kind of come back to myself because I was almost a different person at that time. One of the great parts of Graves' disease is that it causes extreme irritability. So you can all imagine how fun that was for me and for all of us. So thankfully a lot of that is gone, and now life looks hopeful again, finally.
So tell us a little bit about how your illness impacts your work.
Like I said, I started CWAM, which is what we call Christian Work at Home Ministries. I started CWAM in 2000, so at the time I was healthy. I actually didn't have kids yet. I was newly married, but I knew that I wanted to work at home someday, so this was God's answer to that. I certainly had no idea what I was doing, and that's a whole other story for another time. It was 2008 when I was diagnosed, and I had known for quite a while that something was wrong. They couldn't quite figure out what was wrong with me, which is just normal for my life. But once I had a diagnosis, I think that I think I almost relied on that a little too much, and I didn't push myself as hard, which I think in some ways is okay, because I had some grieving to do and some figuring out to do and some long chats with God to have, as I'm sure all of us do at times. And at that time I could barely get off the couch a lot of days, and the fatigue was pretty severe, especially once they started me on heart meds. Like I said, my heart it just beat really rapidly, and my thoughts would race, and I had panic attacks, and it was just bad. And yet at the same time, there was this portion of me that knew that it could be so much worse. I mean, it could have been thyroid cancer. It could have been, the things go through your mind, all the things that it could have been, and yet you're dealing with what is. And so it really hindered me a lot work-wise, and really I kind of put my website into maintenance mode, not really intentionally, but thankfully I was far enough along in business that I could kind of step away and let it kind of do its own thing to some degree. And then thankfully God provided 3 things, and I made a little list for myself, because like I said, all my good brain cells are gone. So the 3 things that God really brought me during this time: He brought me help, in the form of a virtual assistant who honestly donated a lot of those hours. She had an invisible illness as well, and really was much further along in the process than I was, and really understood what I needed, even much more so than I did at the time. It was such a godsend. So he provided help and has continued to do that. She actually, the virtual assistant that I'm talking about, her name was Denise, and she actually passed away in the summer of 2010, and of course that was heart-wrenching. And I still go back and read emails from her that changed my life and motivated me and kept me going at times. And then just a few months later, he reconnected me with an old college friend who is a virtual assistant and running her own business, and so she's now a huge part of CWAM. And then he brought another college gal that assists her. So he brought help, and he brought healing. And I'm really excited to say that I still have a long way to go, don't get me wrong. But as of within about the last month, I've hit my pre-thyroid weight, which means I'm still carrying some baby weight, some weight from life. But the weight that I gained during my thyroid disease, I've worked off. And my husband has a heart condition, and so we've been working hard together, which is a huge benefit and accountability. And I guess that just leads me into the 3rd thing, which is that he just brought hope. God really just restored hope to me and continues to do so. And I still have moments. The weight loss actually sent me back into hyperthyroidism, because then the medication that I was taking, it was too much. So then I went back into the panic attacks and all of those things. And then it's like those setbacks, while they're small, there's still that portion of you that's like, I don't know if I can do this again. I just don't know if I can do it. But he continues to just restore and bring hope at the right time, in the right ways, through people and things that you would just never expect.
What suggestions do you have, Jill, for those who live with an invisible illness and would like to work from home?
I think one of the major things I learned during the darkest of days was really to respect my limitations, and that it was okay to have limitations. So I guess my first suggestion is to just take your time, to the amount that you're able to, and really find something that works for you. I had the added benefit that I was already in business, but like I said, things kind of went into maintenance mode, and finances, plus Dr. Bill's got a little dicey for a while. And so I picked up some freelance work from time to time. I assisted some other people online from time to time. And God was very faithful in providing those opportunities. Like I said, we post telecommuting jobs on CWAM every day of the week. And one of our assistants actually goes out and searches for those. And a great portion of those come from places like elance.com and dice.com. So depending upon your skill set, I think finding freelance work that you can do that kind of fits your schedule is really one of the best ways. Or starting a blog or doing something that you have kind of complete control over, because that way like I said, you can set your own schedule, you can have it flexible around your kids. Obviously starting something of your own is going to take some extra time and effort as opposed to doing freelance work of some sort. So really it's just knowing your limitations, knowing your skill set, and knowing what works best for you. In my book, my co-author and I, we just call it brutal honesty. You have to be so brutally honest with yourself and just say, you know what, I can't keep up with the Joneses. I can't expect the moon. I've got to just be honest and say, these are the things that I'd like to do. These are the things that I'm experienced enough or skilled to do. And this is the amount of time that I have available based on kids' work, family, life, all of that stuff. The other thing I would say is set your own pace. Don't be afraid to work in 20-minute increments. That was something I did, especially in the very first few months, is I would break everything into these little chunks and say, okay, if I can do 20 minutes of work, let me just see how much I can get done, and then I can rest for an hour. And that's where I was at, and I had to learn to just be okay with that, which, believe me, was not easy. I tend to be kind of a go-getter, and I don't want to rest, especially when my heart's beating, 150 beats a minute. Like, I'm ready to go. But the rest of me was not. So I learned to work in small chunks and to rest. And this is the way that I would do it. I would do 20 minutes of work, rest for, half an hour, whatever I needed on the couch or wherever, because my son was home with me. And then I would spend 20 minutes of time with him, like quality, like face-to-face time. And then I would rest, and then I would work, and then this was just like the pattern of our days. And he doesn't remember any of that. He was pretty small, but looking back, that's what it looked like. The other thing I would suggest is to make sure that you connect. My friends, my family, they were my lifeline. They were my support system, and I definitely mean the local church. I mean family and friends, but for me, such a big part of that was online. And Lisa, that's why I love so much what you do, is you create that community where people can find help and hope and healing and hope. I just can't stop saying that word today. And that's what we try to do at CWAM too, is have a community, and you can have more than one community, but make sure that you're connecting, make sure that you're getting that interaction and that encouragement. And then I think the last thing I would really say is to really reach out and help others. I know the times that I stepped outside of myself and really reached out to other people, either dealing with what I was dealing with or even just in the work at home world, you almost forget what you're dealing with. You almost forget all the things going on in your own life, and you're able to really just step outside of that for a while. And I think too, sometimes we sell ourselves really short. And I think that, we need to, even if we're dealing with an invisible illness or any illness, we need to put our best foot forward and not be afraid to take chances and apply for jobs and do freelance work. And you won't know until you try. I took a class for web design early in learning how to do websites. And the one thing they said was go ugly early. And I apply that all the time. Like, sometimes you just have to go ugly early, whether it's a website you're building or freelance work you're doing. Sometimes you just have to take a chance and go for it and kind of muddle through it and figure it out from there, so that the next time you can do it better and better and better.
Now, Jill, there will definitely be times when people around us might tell us, oh, the last thing you need to worry about right now is taking on a new job. Other people will say, I just don't think you're up for that right now. While others might say, I don't think working at home is a good idea. I think it'd be better for you to just go out and get a nice little part-time job and see how it goes at first. What is your advice about listening to the advice and remarks from others?
That is such a loaded question. It's funny, I actually have dealt with that this week. I just wrote an article called "Which Voice Do You Listen to?" and it talked about the article itself talked about the voices that are within us, all those negative voices, because we do that to ourselves too. Like, you'll never be. Who would want to listen to you? Why would they care what you think? All of that stuff. And then we go to God's word and we see the truth. We are created in His image. We are created to work. Our God is a creator. He's a worker. He's a doer. And I think that, I faced some of that stuff too, especially in the very beginning. I know there are still people who think I'm a little nutty, especially then when my kids went to school. And we had to sit down, my husband and I, and really think through, does this make sense anymore? Is it time to go back to work? Is this a part-time thing? What does this look like for us? And just last week, I was having a conversation with my husband, and I was complaining about finances and just, this is a really slow time of year because moms are getting their kids back to school, and there's not a lot of advertising, that revenue, that kind of stuff coming in. And he looked at me, and all he said was, your work is about more than money. And that was enough to really just give me that kick in the pants of, what I do it's not just about the money. It's not just about the work. It's about the people, and it's about doing what God called me to do and being faithful to that. And I think you do have to listen to your trusted friends. And like I said, you need to be brutally honest with yourself as to what you can handle. In my opinion, working from home will never be easy, but for me personally, it will always be easier. All of the struggles, all of the heartache, all of the hours will still be easier than me going and working for an employer because of the flexibility, because of what I get to do, because I love what I do. And the times when people have given me a hard time, all I can go back to is just remembering what God has done and how he brought this about. And I think we just need to be faithful to that. I think you really, like you said, you have to look inward, and you have to figure out, first and foremost, what is God calling you to do? And I will say, somebody asked me this on Facebook the other day, in just a message. She asked, how do you know when it makes sense to do this? How do you know when it makes sense to quit your job? How do you know when it makes sense to work from home? And my answer, and y'all will love this, my answer was, most of the time when God calls us to do something big or scary, it isn't going to make sense at all. It's not going to make sense financially. It's not going to make sense with our illness. It is not going to make sense when it's from God, and not that he's a God of chaos, because we're told in scripture that he's not, but he wants us to trust him and walk forward with him faithfully, and he can see the future. To him, it makes complete sense. To us, with our limited view and our limited ability to look into the future, obviously, it may not make sense to us. Some of the craziest things that I've done where I'm like, Lord, what are you thinking? He works out amazingly. So I would say, if you really feel God's call upon your life, or just that inner urging that this is what you were meant to do, this is what you're supposed to do, then I say go for it. And I guess my suggestion would be, you can always go find a job. Like you said, there's always McDonald's or Target or whatever. But if you don't take the chance now, if you don't go ugly early, like we just talked about, you'll never know. And you'll never know if you could make it work. So I guess I want to paraphrase that just with saying, we do need to listen to our trusted friends. Of course we need to listen to our pastors, but above all else, our accountability is to our husbands if we're married, and to God. And so that's kind of what I've always relied on. It's just like, what? I believe this is where God wants me to be, and he continues to provide opportunities. And until those opportunities dry up or he tells me to go elsewhere, this is where I'm at, crazy or not.
Now, Jill, working at home definitely has its share of challenges, but when we add kids into the mix, it can make it even a little bit more complicated. Tell us a little bit about that.
Working at home with kids is just tough. There's just no way around it. Whether you're homeschooling or your kids just aren't school age yet, it's just really tough. And looking back, there are portions of it that I just don't even remember. I think I've blocked them out from the craziness of it all. But I wrote down a few things when I sat down and really thought about this. And I think the first thing I would say is just to really make time for your kids above all else. The years go so quickly. I know I sound like a little blue-haired old lady, but the time goes so fast. And you just don't want to miss it. You just don't want to miss it, because it will be gone before you know it. And I wrote down, remember what matters. When our lives come to that final stage, whenever that is, hopefully it's years from now, we're not going to say, I wish I would have worked more. I wish, I would have grown my website bigger. None of that is going to matter at that point. Our kids and our family, our husbands, our church family, those are the things that are going to matter. So I think we have to really keep that foremost in our minds, just what matters and who matters, and not worry quite so much about getting the work done. Now, that said, of course, when we have clients relying on us, we have to meet our deadlines. We need to be professional, especially when we're at home. I think it's almost more important to come across professionally and to do the things that you've said that you'll do. And there are times when we do have to say to our kids, mommy has to work, or, whatever. Mommy has a deadline, mommy's freaking out. They do understand those things once they get to a certain age. Then I think that if we are approaching our days with them foremost in our mind, I think that comes across to our kids. I think they know that even though we have to work, that they are most important to us, and that we will make time for them. And this kind of goes back to what I said earlier about working in 20-minute increments when that's possible. This was something that I adapted to because of my illness, but it worked so well with my son when he was little. And you will be shocked, if you've never tried it, how much you can get done in 20 minutes. Or, your increment could be, 30 minutes or an hour, or, whatever your child at their stage and age can handle. But for me, when he was little, 20 minutes worked great. And I could pop out some amazing stuff in 20 minutes. And I may then have to go back and edit it. It may not be stuff that I would publish onto my website right away, but it would be done and knocked out and sent to the back of my mind until my time with him and my resting was done. The other thing I would say is, this is the fun part of having kids at home, is that you can celebrate everything. I mean, kids love to celebrate, right? So, every article that got published, my kids and I had a party. Sometimes we let my husband come. It just depended on the day and what time of day it was. And we would celebrate things like completing tasks, or, in the very beginning of my illness, showering for the day was a big deal. And so we just learned to celebrate those things and to make celebrating work things, as fun as celebrating other things. And sometimes it was just, a scoop of ice cream, or, it was nothing huge, getting to go to McDonald's, or, whatever. But I found that celebrating those things made what I do in their mind fun instead of horrible. And we still had those moments, where they would grab my head away from the computer. But those times were few and far between. And really, we didn't have a lot of instances where they freaked out about it, because we made it fun and we just made it work. And they knew that they were first and that my business was important, but if they were more important. And I think if you have that attitude and that's just how you live your life, I think it comes across to them, and hopefully they live their life that way too, where, they have important parts of their lives, but that their family and God, of course, are at the top of that priority list in everything that they're doing.
Jill, tell us a little bit about your website and what people can find there.
The website is christianworkathomministries.com, or if you don't want to type all of those letters, which I don't, you can just type in CWAM, which is CWAHM, and it's just the first letters of each of those words, Christian Work at Home Ministries. The book is called So You Want to Be a Work at Home Mom, and I co-authored that with Diana Ennin of virtualwordpublishing.com, and she has worked at home and been a virtual assistant for well over 25 years now. I mean, I'm always kidding with her that she worked at home as a VA when she had to chisel things into stone tablets, and she so appreciates me, as you can imagine. My humor escapes her, I think, some days, but she's fantastic, and the advice that she offers, just from so much experience, is phenomenal. We talk a lot in the book about not only what's available out there, but really how to do it and how we made it work. And we share a lot of our failures, which is so great to learn from. Not a lot of fun to write, but really very great to learn from. And then I have an ebook too available for the Kindle, and it's called Work at Home 101, and it's just kind of a mini book. It's only $2.99, but it's just a really broad overview of, in my opinion, these are the 4 ways that you can work from home. These are things that are available, and this is how, X, Y, and Z are how you can make it work.
Yes, and I would encourage people to go and visit the CWAM website. There is a lot of information
great articles, and even if you're just considering what your options are as far as working at home, I know you'll find a lot of helpful information there.
On the website, we have, like I said, I think we're just under 30 bloggers, or right around 30 bloggers. And, we have it broken down into a work at home section, of course, which you would expect, and then a just for her section, and a just for mom section, and a just for dad section. Because shockingly, we have a lot, I guess it's just for him. We have a lot of guys that work from home either as a second income, or they just own their own business, which is really cool. And I didn't expect it when I started out as a mom. So the beauty of it is we do have such a broad perspective, and we have, I would say, at least half of our bloggers are work at home bloggers. So, Anna, that I was just talking about, blogs for us, and we have Lori Twitchell from Beyond the Buzz Marketing, and we have Rashonda Pratt, who teaches how to gain the interest of the media, which is really cool and terrifying, but really cool. And we have Michelle Schaefer, who teaches how to make business simple. And Michelle is one of those people who I sort of should have thought of when we were talking about online learning, because this woman knows how to put things in layman's terms. And she has all of these courses, some free and some paid, but like how to use WordPress and, how to use Pinterest and make it work for business. Michelle is amazing, and check out Michelle Schaefer if you haven't, and check out her column on CWM. We have Leslie Truex, who is a telecommuting expert, and she talks about how to find a job from home. And her column just goes so hand in hand with our telecommuting listings and all of the job stuff that we do. And Leslie wrote an article not long ago called How to Find a Job on Pinterest. I mean, the woman amazes me. And then we have faith bloggers who deal with, how do you work at home with kids? How do you put God first? How do you keep your marriage, intact during all of this? And just so many different perspectives. And I know it's a good day. I know it's a good blogging day when I go to the website and read all of the articles for myself. That's when I get really excited. So I hope that your listeners and viewers, I guess, will check the website out and let us know who their favorites are, because we're in a time of transition where we're trying to decide, as always, are we doing the right things? Are we offering the right things? And so we love to hear from our website visitors, and we love suggestions, and even some nicely worded criticism is really, truly always welcome at CWAM. One of my latest video devotions was just encouragement that everything is possible, that, God can do anything in us and through us, and that someday we'll know the reason why we're dealing with illness, why we're dealing with, whatever we're handling at the time. And I just really want to leave today on the note that God does provide, and that we sometimes need to go back and remember what He's already done for us. I often have to tell myself, I've never gone without food or clothes, or God has been so faithful, and I live in such abundance compared to the rest of the world. And I want to leave you all with that hope, just that God really can do anything, and whatever you're facing right now, He is the one to turn to. And if working at home is what you want to do, or what you feel like He is calling you to do, if that's what's going to work in your life, I would love to hear from you. You are so welcome to email me anytime and just chat with me, ask questions. I'll be happy to share what I've learned over the years, how I failed over the years. I'm really good at that. You can contact me, Jill at cwam.com, or you can find me on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/cwam, and connect with me there. But I really want to be a resource, and I want to be accessible. So if I can help any of you, please feel free to drop me a line. And I just want to leave you remembering that everything is possible through Him. So never give up hope, never stop trying, and go ugly early, and just trust that God can do what God says He can do.